So 6 months have passed since the release date, and in fact, still the only affordable smartphone on the market. But what's more interesting, if you wanted to get the OnePlus 12 and it was still a bit expensive, but now it's the best time to buy it because quite enough time has passed since its release, and there's some promotions, discounts, and etc. going on. And I bought this thing with half terabytes of storage for just $700 new. It's a bargain, and overall, does the OnePlus 12 live up to the title of flagship killer? Well, we gotta figure that out, but I would say it's definitely one of the potential contenders in the category of price and quality. Well, I got one with the green color, 512 gigs, and comparing with the OnePlus 11, this 12th version has a better camera, brighter display, fast USB-C, finally with wireless charging. Thanks for bringing it back. One of the most powerful smartphones in the world, and no wonder, since there's a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, 16 gigs of RAM, and vibration. Man, I've never experienced such vibration. When I look at the specs of this device and its very tasty price, I was like, whoa, that's gonna be the best purchase for the money in terms of hardware, display, battery, and overall flagship experience. So as I said, I bought this thing new for just $700 on Amazon with a nice discount. It was like a Prime Day or something, while the original price fluctuates somewhere in between $800 to $900. So for 700 bucks, that's a steal. And on top of that, you get a fully loaded box with the nice saturated red color. The box itself is very stylish. The slogan of the company is always never settle. The fat smartphone itself, the cameras under the circle, 80-watt charging adapter, and of course a red charging cable. And look at that, USB Type-A. What? There's a 21st century outside, but OnePlus still putting USB-A in the box. And thanks for the small Type-C adapter. Some paperwork, stickers, red cable club, and a SIM ejector tool. Well, as far as I know, there are 2 versions of these for Chinese market and for global market. In China version, in the box you're gonna get a case for the smartphone and a 100-watt charger brick. But in global version box, for some countries you get none of that. No charger and no case. But interestingly, for the US market, they put at least a charger. Unfortunately, it's just an 80-watt superwork charger, but thanks for that. It's a welcome addition. More, there's an interesting fact. It runs an Oxygen operating system, but China version runs an operating system called ColorOS. So there are 2 colors, black and this green one. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a white color as well, but only for China market. Well, I think this device is pretty unique. No wonder just for 700 bucks. And you ask me why is it unique? Everything is quite obvious, because this device is so bananas good in terms of smoothness, feeling, and performance. The vibration here is incredible. When you first turn on this smartphone, you think, oh, can smartphones really vibrate like this? It's very precise, powerful, and sort of restrained at the same time. The iPhone cannot vibrate like this. I'm telling you as a long-time user. So that's why we're gonna talk about performance, about heating, about display size, moisture resistant, brightness, about the new periscope module, about its insane battery life, because now it is simply the best among all Android smartphones. If previously the OnePlus 11 offered around 4 to 5 hours of a screen time per day, this one can get you an insane 8 to 10 hours a day. I'm gonna show you the screenshots just in a bit. More, even all brands under BBK along with OnePlus like Vivo and Oppo, they don't provide such optimization, such smooth animations. Plus it works in tandem with the vibration, meaning you make some action and get haptic feedback. It is a truly nice and unusual feeling. Yeah, the vibration is constantly present here. So long story short, the first impression is it is such a steal of a smartphone. Briefly about the design. So regards to design of OnePlus flagships in recent years, I probably won't tell you anything new. It changes evolutionary. In terms of exterior, they decided to develop the design idea of the OnePlus 11. So on the back, we still get a beautiful aluminum circle with cameras. For some reason, Chinese guys added glitter inside. And in general, the ring itself has become larger. And not only that, the smartphone itself has also increased in size because the display diagonal has grown. We'll talk about that in a bit, but overall it is a truly big smartphone. Nevertheless, this guy has Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the front and a standard Gorilla Glass on the back. Aluminum frame feels metal, and of course it is outfitted with a screen protector out of the box. With the green color, you get this matte velvety glass finish which feels simply amazing to the touch. I could could run my finger over it in tactile ecstasy again and again. And yeah, keep in mind, if you use this smartphone without a case, it's extremely slippery, and combined with its weight and rounded edges, this makes it almost inevitable that it will fall off. Finally, the power and volume buttons are now on the right side. They used to be on different edges. The mute switch is on the left. I've never used it, but for many OnePlus users, it's a sacred element, and if it was removed, I'm sure there would be a lot of hate about that. At the top, there's an output for the second speaker, an infrared blaster, and a microphone. The infrared sensor, which was unexpectedly added in this generation, might be very useful for someone. Moreover, the standard pre-installed app turned out to be no worse in functionality than any popular third-party apps. On the bottom edge, we see the main speaker along with the USB-C port. Now it is 3.2 Gen 1, supporting data transfer rates of up to 5 gigabits per second. It's a very nice addition because its predecessor oddly had an old 2.0 port. In theory, USB Type-C 3.2 allows for data transfer speeds between the smartphone and the laptop up to 10 gigabits per second. But you need to consider that both the cable and the computer must support these speeds. Of course, it's worth it. A 1 gig video transfers from the phone to the computer in less than a half minute. So moving forward, as you might see here, there's a microphone and a tray for 2 SIM cards and this red gasket. The gasket is associated with the claimed IP65 water resistant level, which is official. But an IP65 is not even close to IP68, so I wouldn't recommend to submerge this smartphone, although it might handle a heavy rain. But in flagship level device, of course it would be better to have an IP68, right? Speaking of rain, OnePlus boasts about the rain water touch technology, which allows you to comfortably use the smartphone even when the screen or your fingers are wet. And yeah, I can confirm, this technology really works. Of course, sometimes it's not like perfectly, but it's quite possible to use it when it's rainy or something. While on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, the touch operations went crazy. Sometimes worked, sometimes didn't, so this feature indeed has its practical value. Display. Well, if everything is nice with the design, with the materials, how it feels in the hand, everything is nice. But the display, that's kind of thing that's gonna put customers off, especially if they prefer flat displays. This one has curved edges, which many people still find it something quite disgusting. For me personally, it feels okay in the hands because I don't hate rounded displays, and at the same time I don't like them that much. I mean, curved over the edges, like you can see the lights falls off. An extra dose reflection comes with that. But you know what I really don't like? OnePlus is still making the edges as curved as possible. I like how the Honor made it with Magic 6 Pro, or how the Motorola did it last year. The edges are curved, but the side itself is flat, giving a nice trendy feel. That's definitely missing here. But it's worth noting that this is a top-tier flagship, a large, vibrant, crisp, and smooth OLED panel. Of course, LTPO Pro XDR display. The refresh rate is dynamic from 1 to 120 Hz. In the settings, you can manually set the refresh rate for different applications, 60, 90, 120 Hz, and it really works. YouTube Messenger's browser really scrolls at 120 Hz. I don't know what other flagships allow you to manually set, but it's definitely cool. But on the other hand, there is an interesting fact. Here you might see it is selected auto-select, like out of the box, not the high refresh rate. And if you visit Tartufo.com, so the software that much kind of smart, so it considers that the browser doesn't need more than 90 Hz, but we want to see 120 Hz. For this, we enable the high refresh rate, and what we got here. Initially, we get about 120 FPS, which means 120 Hz, but after just a couple of seconds, it drops to the standard 60 FPS. That's how the system works. It remains smart even with the high 120 Hz selected, which is the frame rate if we convert it to animation. OnePlus really doesn't want to deliver, but I believe that happens only for browser. Resolution is Quad HD Plus, which can be lowered to standard in the settings. In talking about the image quality, I don't see any differences at all on such diagonal with such pixel density. But this will positively affect the battery life. The lower the resolution, the less load on the graphics subsystem. The pixel density is extremely high, over 500 per inch. There's also 1p colors coverage. However, I would pay attention to the increased diagonal, which was 6.7 inches for a long time, and now it is 6.82 inches. Fans of large screens will definitely like it. It may seem like a small increase in numbers, but believe me, it feels significant. It's even bigger than this S24 Ultra. This might be the largest screen among flagships because most of them have 6.78 or 6.8 inches. And in fact, the smartphone feels different in the hand. It's kind of difficult to operate with one hand. However, it feels quite nice in the hand. It is relatively heavy. By the way, the OnePlus 12 is 15 grams heavier than the version 11, weighing 220 grams, and in the phone world, 15 grams, that's a quite sensible difference. More, it became a tiny bit thicker than the previous one by less than a 1mm. It is 9.2mm. A fully fledged always-on display is present. Everything works well, and there's a bunch of settings for color reproduction. The interface operates very smoothly with a very high touch response speed. It claims a mind-blowing brightness of 4500 nits. What? How don't we go blind from such brightness, and where we can find these 4500 nits? No one has been able to measure that, and most likely those values are not real. I guess it's a marketing myth based on numbers for HDR content obtained over a limited screen area. However, some researchers did find peak brightness around 1700 nits, and some super expert found 2700 nits under certain conditions, but where's the 4500 nits? Nobody knows. But it also gets extremely dim too, which is pretty useful at night. Nevertheless, the display indeed looks very bright. And you know, it's that much bright, so 99% of the time I keep the brightness slider, let me just set it to maximum for you just for a second. So I keep the brightness at somewhere 55%. I don't need something more. You might ask why I don't use automatic brightness adjustment, which is available here, and it's pretty obvious. Years go by, OnePlus models change, but the problem with inadequate brightness adjustment still remains. It works, but sometimes quite weird. Nonetheless, yeah, the panel is indeed bright. In vivid sunlight, everything is visible, extremely readable, super impressive. I wouldn't say this panel is the brightest screen I've ever seen, but it does look brighter for sure than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. All in all, everything is crispy, smooth, and vibrant with excellent colors. More, there's a DC dimming option in the settings, which you can enable to avoid PWM from affecting your eyes, minimizing eye strain, and in general, it's a nearly perfect, cool, and responsive display with thin, minimal, almost non-existent bezels on all sides. I have no complaints about this screen. However, the curved edges might be a deal breaker for some, making them ready to give up on the smartphone no matter how good it is, just because of the waterfall screen. By the way, when you view images in a native Photos app, you might feel that something is strange. The picture looked too bright and overexposed. Don't worry, your photos are fine, it's just the Photos app itself. The Pro XDR mode for photo viewing is enabled by default. There's even a special button to temporarily disable this mode. Yeah, I know this meant to showcase the display's capabilities, but sometimes it bothers me because the bright areas of the photos appeared overexposed. If this also bothers you, you can just get rid of that. Open Photos Gallery, click the triple dot on the upper right hand corner, then view photos in Pro XDR and turn it off. Now all your images will be displayed in a normal, natural way. Just a heads up so you're aware of this quirk in the soft version. Let's talk about operating system. So first of all, this all runs on Android 14. Unfortunately, nothing remains of the original OnePlus interface. It is called Oxygen OS. It works well without major problems, and most importantly, it is stable. But do you remember the times when the OnePlus came with its own apps like phone, messages, calendar, email, etc.? Nowadays, these phones come with all Google apps, including Keyboard, Google Phone app, Google Messenger, Calendar, Gmail, etc. Apparently, OnePlus has given up on actually building solid apps and just slapping Google apps into it. Had I known this, I would probably have gotten a Google Pixel or Samsung phone, of course if the prices were equal. But thankfully, at least OnePlus gave us a Notes app. Other than this being a Google Everything phone, it's pretty good, but the software could use some polishing. Every new OnePlus smartphone has more or less the same battery performance, averaging about a day and up to 5 hours of screen time. Qualcomm traditionally claimed during the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 presentation that that energy efficiency has improved, and the same was echoed by the Chinese when showcasing the OnePlus 12. They even increased the battery capacity. The installed battery here is one of the largest on the market, an incredible 5400 mAh, non-removable. Only the new Honor Magic 6 Pro has a larger battery. This 5400 mAh converts into incredibly long screen time. The battery life here is absolutely wild. I fully charged it in the morning and I've been using it for a whole day. Mostly I watched YouTube videos, 5 hours and 23 minutes of a screen time, and still has 70% battery remaining. So overall it could get me easily 2 days of use in my testing mode. Or if you convert those remaining 70% of a battery life to a screen time, roughly speaking that's gonna be total about 15 to 16 hours of screen time. That's clinically insane. But of course it totally depends on how you use your device. If you're, let's say, a hardcore gamer and play a ton of time actively heating and loading the phone, the processor will drain the battery a bit faster. Nonetheless, tests are positive. In gaming mode at high brightness, it lost 20% in 1 hour, which is pretty nice actually. Besides good battery life, it also has extremely fast charging. In the box, you'll get such 80-watt super low power adapter. OnePlus is still putting USB Type-A in the box like 10 years ago. But other than that, the ultra fast charging, it is so convenient that I wouldn't want to give it up. With the included charger, the phone charges from 0 to 100 in less than half an hour. 15 minutes gets you 60%, which is mind-blowing, really. So basically you can comfortably use a fully charged smartphone for 2 days, and then just 15 minutes of charging gives you a 60%. That's really no-brainer battery life and charging speed. iPhone 15 Pro Max got nothing on this. So definitely thumbs up. But there's one detail you gotta know to get the maximum charging speed. We go to the settings, battery section, and find the smart rapid charging option. However, in my test, the results was the same with both ways. It charged just as quickly. And what I especially like is that the OnePlus does listen to the customer's feedback and they work on an improvement. Last year, remember when the OnePlus 11 came out, it surprisingly didn't have wireless charging. It was essentially a flagship without wireless charging. Probably the only one on the market, even though the OnePlus 10 did have. Thankfully, the OnePlus 12 has wireless charging and it is very fast, 50 watts. Charging fully somewhere 50 to 60 minutes. You can buy this charging station separately and you're good to go. I also wish there was a Qi 2 support for wireless charging, but unfortunately no Qi 2 support and no magnets either. No magnets is a bit disappointing, but other than that, the charging is very fast. Reverse charging is also supported, as well as reverse wireless charging. So the hardware, everything here is quite predictable. Yeah, flagships nowadays are like twins in this regard. So Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. This processor doesn't need any special introduction. It is the cream of the crop in the Android world. 4nm process, 3.3 GHz, Cortex X4, GPU Adreno 750, mine with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. And there's a top spec China version with 24 gigs of RAM and 1 TB of storage, which is mind-blowing. Do I have to tell how fast the device works? It operates extremely quickly with no lags or slowdowns, loads instantaneously in mere fractions of a second. You can play games on it too. And you know another advantage for OnePlus? It doesn't overheat that much. In the battery section, we toggle on high performance mode. In the display section, we click high, it is a refresh rate, and then we start pushing it N22. It maintains around 46 Celsius degree. I managed to score an impressive 2 million plus points with over 887,000 points coming from the GPU. The heating up to 46 degree is the CPU temperature. I don't know about the real body temperature, but feeling in the hand wasn't hot, just barely warm, which is good because many smartphones, including the Galaxy S24 Ultra with the same Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, heat up to at least similar or higher temperature on the first run. Xiaomi heats up to over 50 degrees, so the OnePlus opted for less heating by reducing performance and moderately lowering brightness. Moreover, it has a powerful vapor chamber, consequently the smartphone performs very well and the heating is felt mostly in these synthetic tests. Furthermore, if you know OnePlus ones keep holding the top spot, scoring well over 2 million points in the N22 rankings. I didn't manage to hit such huge numbers, but I'm not suffering from that because firstly, it's a super fast, well-developed device with an excellent system, and secondly, it handles any game absolutely just fine. But as usual, let's not pay too much attention to those numbers because the processor is powerful and doesn't get heavily loaded in real-world use, And I feel a little bit uncomfortable talking about the gaming performance. Even the OnePlus 10 with its Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 was enough for me to play everything at maximum resolution. Here I honestly don't even know what game to install to not get the maximum available graphics. I've been launching several games, all of them ultra max settings. I made a gaming test for an hour and a half. For a warm-up, I played mobile PUBG. First, I set the settings to smooth in order to get ultra extreme, which is 120 frame rate. Everything works incredibly well. Stable, no lags, very good. Just wonderful. The smartphone didn't hit up. Then I decided to change these settings to even higher. You choose Ultra HDR here, because Extreme HDR is still coming soon. Frame rate is ultra, of course. And yeah, again, everything is so nice. Love that. Stable, really good. Of course, there's no problem. No wonder Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is doing its job. It's quick, no lags. I launched Genshin Impact. As usual, max settings and max FPS. The game doesn't support more than 60 Hz. I played, ran around, and everything was excellent. Smooth and clear, no problems. And as a final test, I launched War Thunder, which supports at higher refresh rate. Of course, set the highest available graphics everywhere. Here's also everything was absolutely playable. And looking at the OnePlus FPS counter, I've been seeing a maximum of 60 FPS, but at the same time, the game's own counter showed 120 FPS. So I have some doubts about this. Possibly the native counter from BBK is simply wrong. I'm not sure why is that, but it's definitely interesting. By the way, I didn't have any brightness issues in the games. Once I noticed it dropped slightly, then I just adjusted the brightness slider and it returned back. So it's not locked. And overall, I consider this device easily suitable for gaming, especially considering the large screen size. Although mobile gamers usually prefer flat screens. And here I remind you it has curved edges. So yeah, it's a quite decent gaming solution even for those who don't play games. They will still like the phone because everything works just like instantly. So, camera performance. On paper, the OnePlus looks like one of the coolest photo flagship in the Android world for 2024. It is equipped with a camera array consisting of 3 sensors: a 50 megapixel f1.6 main sensor, 23mm focal length with omnidirectional face detection autofocus, and optical image stabilization, a 48 megapixel f2.2 114-degree ultra-wide camera with autofocus, 14mm field of view. Well, finally the telephoto lens. OnePlus has significantly upgraded it. It's a 64 megapixel f2.6 3x periscope telephoto lens, a 70mm focal length, and it can focus up close. And of course, there's a proud Hasselblad branding, which we've gotten used to over the years, and it mostly doesn't get you any value, just for show. In the fourth eye, besides the flashlight, there is a multispectral sensor meant to improve results even further. So let's look at the pictures. At the moment, I got the iPhone 15 Pro Max with me, so let's compare it with the flagship just for fun. Both images with 1x lens, and right away we notice OnePlus tiny bit wider because it is 23mm and on iPhone 24mm. But other than that, both look very nice, quite identical, except the shadows on OnePlus seems a bit bluish. There's no point to look for the differences in detail here. Trust me, I've done this silly quest and didn't see any difference, which is not surprising. During the day, all the smartphones nowadays take clean and detailed photos. As for the low light comparison, to my surprise, they're so similar that I almost didn't see any difference. The low light algorithm on both phones work well. And being real, I'm really impressed with how the OnePlus keeps up with the iPhone flagship. It is as good, almost no difference exists. Here I see the iPhone picture is a bit more contrasty and a tiny bit dimmer. Both look nice. And these devices nowadays that you got in your pocket get you pretty decent results. Here on the left side, the OnePlus is a little bit more saturated with contrast. So all in all, what do we got? It takes very decent photos and I'm pleasantly surprised. It justifies its $700 price without a doubt. No problems were found. It's a good camera for taking pictures of people, for portraits, street photography, and shooting animals. By the way, the telephoto lens on the 12th model has been significantly upgraded. The OnePlus 11 was much weaker, only 2x and without optical stabilization. Overall, it's not the best telephoto lens. Top camera phones can have 2 different telephoto lenses, but as you can see, it produces excellent excellent shots. And yeah, speaking of the telephoto lens, it allows you to get non-flat mobile photos. There's an optical blur effect, not as much as on full-frame mirrorless camera with wide aperture lenses. You cannot fool physics, but still using this 3x lens is much more interesting than the main lens. At a 3x optical zoom, we get the equivalent of 70mm focal length. If we press here, we get 85mm. There's also a button in the interface for a quick switch to 6x, which is a hybrid zoom equivalent to 140mm. The maximum digital zoom for photography here is 120x, but of course it's gonna be way too blurry as you see here. So that's why it will be interesting to look at the samples without any crops and crazy zooms. OnePlus here turned out yellowish, while the iPhone is a bit green for whatever reason. Here everything remains the same except OnePlus a bit tighter because the lens is 6x while the iPhone 5x. I don't want to pixel people like crazy. I appreciate your time. I'm just giving you a general idea of how good the OnePlus performing for the money. By the way, the ultra wide angle lens here is not bad. It has some good details and remains close to the ultra wide angle lens of the iPhone 15 Pro Max in terms of quality. However, the iPhone's field of view is still a bit wider at 120° versus 114. This is where the difference comes, and it's not in favor of the OnePlus, of course. Moving to the video capabilities, it can shoot up to 8K with a little bit of a crop and only 24 frames per second. But regarding to the video quality, and I thought there's not gonna be some noticeable difference, but 8K looks obviously sharper, or maybe it's the algorithm applies sharpening effect on top, because the file size not that much bigger than 4K file. And look at this bitrate difference in just 3 megabits per second. True 8K video should be at least 200 megabits. That's alright, it's just pocketable phone. And on top of all of that, you don't have any options to change the lenses while recording 8K, just a main wide lens. At 4K, there's an option to shoot 60 FPS, but if you want to use a depth of field feature, it automatically changes it to 1080p. And you know what? This depth of field type of feature doesn't do anything at all. Like you might notice here, pay attention to the background. If we change from strong f1.4 to whatever f16, the background should become more in focus when we close the aperture. But interestingly, there's nothing going on there. So double click to launch the camera when the screen is off is also available. There's an ultra steady button, and again, it doesn't work at 4K, just 1080p and only 60 FPS. But thankfully, HDR mode is available, including 4K 60. There's a built-in filters or LUTs, whatever you name it. Of course, it changes to 1080p as well as retouch feature changing to 1080p. I mean, I don't know, just give me my true 4K recording with all of those features applied on top. That would be so dope. And it's worth mentioning, when we tap the more button in the camera app, there are some various professional modes and stuff like that. Night, panel, movie, time lapse, long exposure, and other fun features to play around. The most entertaining part for me is the dual view video recording, when you simultaneously record with back and front cameras. Slow motion is available at 1080p 240 fps. More, you can shoot 480 fps for even more slow motion, but there you'll have to sacrifice resolution, which drops to 720p. So what about recording video with a telephoto lens? I was walking unsuspectingly and all of a sudden a plane was flying by. Of course, I didn't manage to zoom into 120x, but at the standard 6x, it produced quite nice usable footage, as you can see. I also note the improvement in video quality in low light conditions compared to the 11th model. It's better in every way, including noise and detail. But if you compare it to iPhone, of course iPhone delivers way better low light video footage, being less noisy, sharper, overall cleaner and better. While the OnePlus, it looks like a 720p resolution. The front camera is 32 megapixels, quite a good camera. This is an example of a regular selfie photo, and this is a portrait mode with artificial blur. By the way, the depth of field really works here, unlike the back camera in video test. And like many other Chinese brand, OnePlus also added the ability to shoot 4K on the front camera, but for now only at 30 fps. You can turn on the fill light while recording the video. So depth of field, when you apply this, it changes from 4K to 1080p. Moreover, you cannot use both fill light and depth of field simultaneously, just one action at a time. By the way, this retouch feature might be useful for some people. You can soften your skin, make your chin smaller or bigger, eye size, nose, chin, even your head. But unfortunately, Of course, it automatically changes from 4K to 1080p when you apply retouch. By the way, another point I want to mention in terms of interaction with the phone is the unlocking experience, as this guy unlocks instantly. The under-display fingerprint scanner is located quite high, but because of the size and weight, the balance has changed. So even with this placement, you often gotta adjust your grip on the smartphone. Simply speaking, the phone is just quite large. The scanner is optical, and initially it seemed even faster than it was on the 11th version, but after a couple of weeks the novelty wore off, and it feels the same in terms of speed. And you know, I wouldn't mind having a more advanced ultrasonic scanner. Of course, there's also face unlock, which is lightning fast and supposedly protected by some algorithms. If you want the smartphone to unlock automatically, it's very simple to set up. You need to toggle on raise to wake and set up face unlock so that it goes straight to the home screen during unlocking. Then when you pick up the smartphone from the table, it'll unlock instantly, and it works great actually. But in terms of connectivity, it is simply top-notch. Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth version 5.4, infrared port, we've already talked about that, NFC for contactless payments, and support for high-quality codecs like aptX HD and LHDC. I must mention the excellent haptic feedback, although it was great on the version 11 as well, and still OnePlus has upgraded the vibration motor again, improving this all haptics. The vibration on this phone is very satisfying. It feels nice to tap, making you want to keep tapping, and it vibrates with a pleasing buzz like you can hear, I guess. As for sound quality, I want to say that the OnePlus 12 produces pretty nice sound. As usual, there are two speakers, one at the bottom, the main one, and another one that directs sound forward, also used for calls. The stereo effect is noticeable, and it even has some bass in a phone world. It sounds good with Dolby Atmos presets available in the settings. However, the effect on mobile speakers is not significant. Yeah, there is some difference, but it is small. So the conclusions. I know there are some people who say OnePlus is not the same anymore, there are no native apps left, they messed everything up. But these are often fan complaints about OnePlus being fully integrated under Oppo. But on the other hand, everyone knew from the beginning that OnePlus is subsidiary company of Oppo. Some users leave, others come, and this company has already formed a substantial community. Some will say the OnePlus 12 is too big and doesn't fit well in the hand, but supply meets demand. Apparently the trend now is towards larger sizes, and many people find it more interesting to use a bigger phone. So nevertheless, I can say that the OnePlus 12 left a positive impression overall. Technically, the phone is very cool, powerful, with a great battery life, an excellent display, very fast performance, good haptics, fast charging, a decent package, adapter, etc. And the camera is quite good. Yeah, it's still not at the level of top flagships, there's no IP68, no dual telephoto system. However, it's significantly cheaper than the leading flagships. Cheaper than, let's say, S24 Plus, not the Ultra, but the Plus. Cheaper than the Xiaomi 14 Pro as well. Is it worse? In general, it offers at least as much, and in some areas it might be even a little better. Or Xiaomi 14. Yeah, it's a different size and therefore targets a different audience. In most metrics, it's not worse than these Samsung, Xiaomi's and others. The camera is weaker, which is probably the main drawback you'll have to accept. So if you need a flagship camera phone that truly takes outstanding photos on its own, this might not be the best option for you. In that case, you might want to consider, let's say, the Pixel 8 Pro, which is an excellent smartphone with good software, you're gonna love it. But I would advise waiting a bit. Google just announced Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL, but if you're okay with just simply good pictures, then this is a very interesting option. Games, easy, stable, crispy. No wonder Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, it needs no introduction. The other little downside I see for some people, there's no AI stuff, AI features. I don't know why is that. So wrapping it up, for the price, let me remind you, it's $200 off. This guy right here is an incredible device, almost without any flaws. So when you buy such a device, it'll probably remain relevant for about 5 years. And as of recording of this video, August 2024, it's been 6 months since its release, and it is still the most attractive flagship in the Android world, cheaper than other Android phones, and after all, it's a OnePlus, a smartphone with a great history. That's all for now. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.